Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special little bonus episode of Streaming Rainbow. Today, we have with us Grace Carroll. She is the creator of the Faefolk Fables, which is the game that I am running for our first ever stream for Streaming Rainbow. And yeah, we're gonna have a little conversation with Grace here. Grace, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think a great question is, how would you describe your game in a nutshell?
All right. So I think my game is a cross between beginners D&D and the Spiderwick Chronicles is where I would say it lands. Obviously all ages can and should play, but I did design it after teaching D&D to kids and just watching them struggle with the incredibly specific rules, saying let's make something a little bit more geared towards beginners. And so that was where this came from.
Amazing. I love that. And what was it about the Fae that had you choose them as what to build it around?
Well, I've been such a Fae lover my entire life. My family is very, very strongly Scottish and Irish. So the folklore has been in my childhood forever. And my mom, in order to keep me enticed to go hiking, bought me the Spiderwick Field Guide as a kid. And so she would really, to keep me outside, she would have me go, find where maybe the knockers would live and all of these different cool little moments. And my grandmother also was very passionate about finding fairy homes in forests and finding anywhere that could be a Fae circle and all of these. The Fae just it's very dear to my heart. And
agreed.
My TikTok name is Don't Play with the Fae.
Yes. Go follow her. Her TikTok is great. That's how I found her. So yes.
Particularly, and it's funny, I never actually told the story on TikTok, even though it's why my name is Don't Play with the Fae. I had a really bad experience with messing around with the Fae. Well, I was like, we can't play with it. Because right at the beginning of COVID, got into just some very beginner witchcraft. I'd always had a witchy mom and a witchy family, but I had never really practiced. Mm-hmm. And then I started practicing and was a little bit, a little willy-nilly. And really learned all my rules. Yeah. And one key rule is that if you're foraging from nature, if you haven't grown or cultivated something yourself, you really shouldn't rip it out of the ground. Yeah. If it's fallen, if it's an acorn, if it's moss that's already fallen off of a rock, all of those things are fair game. But I was going through these beautiful woods and I ripped up some moss that was still very solidly adhered to a rock. So, really messed with it. And then moments later, felt like I walked through this giant spider web, even though I did not see a spider web. Felt awful. Went home already kind of feeling like I'd messed up. And then for 3 days, everything I ate tasted like metal. So I am completely convinced.
Yeah.
I started messaging witch friends. I'm like, what do you do if you've upset the Fae? Do you converse with them further? Do you just step away? I ended up giving back the moss.
Sure.
And then I left just a little bit of, I grow my own garden sage. So I just left some sprigs of sage, as if to say, here.
Yeah.
Sorry. And I got my taste back slowly. It wasn't instantaneous.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, guys, don't play with the Fae. That is a great name and also great advice. So that being said, that you grew up with this in your life, do you have a favorite story or legend that you really resonates with you?
I've always gravitated towards darker themes, just even as a kid. So banshees as an image, which I did not put in my book at all because I was gearing it towards kids. But banshees are definitely one of the ones I'm the most interested in and fascinated in, and just the idea of fear being behind grief, that those two things commingling, that pain and fear can commingle. But in terms of what I used from more of an inspiration standpoint, we were just talking about it before we started the stream. I've always loved brownies.
Yeah.
They've always made me feel very safe in a home.
Yeah.
You know, when you're a kid and there's mice activity in your home,
Mhm.
when your mom contextualizes it as brownies, it just feels a lot safer, you know, and it
Yeah.
just feels like
They're just there to help,
there's
like
someone looking out for me,
yeah.
opposed to it was like a more positive Santa Claus. They're not judging me. They're just they're giving me little
Exactly.
gifts when I need a little help.
Exactly. I love that. That's so but I agree, the Banshees are fascinating. I am also of Irish descent. Gallagher is my last name, everyone knows that, and it's very North Irish, so I hold that deep in my soul. Um, so for Faefolk Fables,
Yeah, it is a tongue
um,
twister.
the, uh, the the thing that drew me to it, besides the fact that it's the Fae, is how um you kind of talked about this, how accessible it felt and how
Mhm.
friendly it felt. And that was really cool for me. And the cottagecore is such a great a great vibe that I wish was I mean, it's already pretty popular, but like in a world of excess, like and like shiny and neon and all that stuff, just like cozy and warm is so nice. And that was something that really drew me to this. But then I read it and I'm even more intrigued. So you've got a couple mechanics.
Mhm.
Um and you talking about the fact that you made it with kids in mind explains a lot to me, which I love because I've got little nephews and I could totally see them, my 6-year-old nephew, running with this because he's got an
Yeah.
amazing imagination. And the fact that you do this on a D6, which is so easy. Like
Mhm.
it's not like D&D. It's not like 5e where you're like, okay, first you got to roll on a D20 and add like and do like complex algebra and then do more math. Like it's I really loved that. But something that really caught my attention is the group bond mechanic.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to explain the group bond mechanic because it is something that I think more games need for sure.
So the group bond is given out at a game master's discretion, which because I base this very strongly off of playing with teens and children.
Mhm.
I really kept trying to push working as a collective because no matter how much kids think they want to be the main character, and so do adults. And I've struggled with that at tables of trying to push that no one is the main character, the story is the main character. And so the group bond, I played an amazing round once of is it Wander Home or Wanderlust? I can't remember its name.
Wander
Wander.
it could be either. Wanderlust sounds familiar though.
I'll have to look it up, but it's beautiful, and you can play it without a game master. You
Oh
can play
yeah.
it collaboratively, and it was just so rich and lovely. And we didn't fight a single creature the entire time.
Mhm.
We just talked about old letters and people's regrets, and it was just like the most wonderful game. And I wanted to try to write something in that would encourage and reward group play. So the group bond mechanic is given out at any moment that your GM is noticing really awesome teamwork, really
Mhm.
collaborative problem solving, using group skills instead of your own
Yeah.
individual skills. Anytime that happens, you can give out a point. And when you reach certain points, and everybody gets them, not one individual, the whole team
Yes.
gets them. And once you reach certain points, you can have benefits given to
Yeah.
you. So I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but
There were
re-rolls or
yeah, there and I think the last one was everyone gets a knack, which I love
yes,
the knacks and lacks are my favorite. It's
you
so
get new
cute.
skill sets if
Yeah.
you're strong enough as a group. And just so incentivizing really positive group play opposed to
Yeah.
turning on your teammates and things, which has always made me uncomfortable at tables when I'm like,
Yeah.
"Aw, I
Yeah.
thought we were doing this as a group."
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. That's a huge collaboration. I have had more fun at tables where we are all there to collaborate and have fun. And I loved the fact that you wrote in there being like, "Hey, the story weaver," which is what you call your game masters,
Yeah.
the story weaver can take away bond point. If you're being kind of a dick, like we can take that away.
Oh yeah.
So,
And
which
it's just, there can be toxicity at tables, and
yeah.
it's specifically it's really strongly trying to ward off the loner persona
Mhm.
of I'm a lone wolf and I don't work with the group.
Yeah.
It's really trying to ward off too many players having that mentality, or maybe if they start with that mentality, it incentivizes the shift
Yeah.
happening earlier.
Character growth, wild. The other, it's not, it is a mechanic, I guess. But it's something about your book that I found really lovely, which is the fact that you called out the different levels of story. Like
Mhm.
you have a charming tale. I forget the middle one. And then it's like there's
Thrilling,
like thrilling adventure maybe, and
thrilling
then
adventure and epic
epic.
something. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me because
No,
I'm
you're good.
traveling.
I do, and I should really be reading it, but I've spent so much time in here. It's so good. But it's basically what I loved about it is that the story weaver and the players can choose the story they want to tell. With if you want to be chill cottagecore, I think like Stardew Valley, like everybody was
Yeah.
just hanging out paying their bills basically in Stardew Valley, or you can decide to have that epic adventure where there's battles and monsters and all these things. So, um, what I guess what inspired you to include that as like something that you actually on purpose call out?
Yeah. When I was playing with I ran a camp, is how
Sure.
all of this kind of,
Amazing.
when I say I was teaching teenagers, I was playing with a group of from ages 12 to 16. So a really wide gap of
Yeah.
experience. And some of the kids have been playing for 3 years and were, rule lawyers, and some
Yeah.
had never played because it was a beginner class. And we were going through, I like to do with every table I run, green list, yellow list, red list for
Yeah.
topics. So,
Absolutely.
for those who don't know what I would mean by that, green is enthusiastically include this. So
Mhm.
people saying puzzles, people saying romance with NPCs, just like
Yeah.
things that they're really enthusiastic about having in the story. So when you're running it, if they want you to call back to their family stuff that they've written, include my backstory, include
Yeah.
my occupation, anything like that. Yellow is approach with caution. So I almost always find that things like violence go into yellow because
Mhm.
you got to have some in some games, uh
Sure.
and then red is never ever ever bring it up, and that's where you see things like SA, where it's why would that
Yeah.
need to be in the story, or
Exactly.
self-harm, or just really triggering subject matters, and some things that you wouldn't expect to be. Like sometimes I found on the list, and they completely deserve to be on that list if it's a trigger. Childhood neglect was on that list, and when it comes to D&D characters, often that'll be
Yeah.
something that would come up. So having that
Yeah.
on that list was important. But I was setting up my red list, and I had a young player. They said that they wanted to put on their red list any bloodshed. And
Sure.
the other players, not not being bad kids, just struggling with that, were like, that's not Dungeons and Dragons. You can't play Dungeons and Dragons and not stab people. Like, they were so against that being on the red list, and tried to talk this student back from it, like saying
Sure.
no visual gory descriptions, things like that. And I just was like, there needs to be a place where
Mhm.
this kid can comfortably play, where they can have that request, and it's not met with that's not the game.
Yeah.
So by putting in that little section of charming story, especially if you're going to play with, your 6-year-olds
Yeah.
as their first time being introduced to tabletop gameplay. And I have played with 6-year-olds, and we played a really lovely children's version of Dungeons and Dragons, obviously not Dungeons and Dragons, but of
Yeah.
that game, called what is it? No thank you evil. No thanks evil.
That's great.
It's adorable.
That's
And
great.
even in that game, some kids were like, that's too scary.
Yeah.
So you had to having that suggestion, if a parent is the story weaver and sees that page and gets, a heist for the butter
Yeah.
as a storyline that you can play, opposed
Yeah.
to going into the unknown and facing off the darkness itself. You
Yeah.
have, you have You have to get the butter from the kitchen in Dad's home.
Yeah,
As a way to
done.
play.
Yeah. It's like don't wake daddy. Like
Yeah.
those level of yeah, that's I love it just because I mean, we here at Streaming Rainbow run the gamut of like every type. We did Curse of Strahd. We've done a lot of stuff. I mean, it's been really gory. There's been some great really gory. There's been some really silly. But I really love I love showcasing a space that is just lovely.
Mhm. Yep.
You
I
know?
got a DM that made me so happy, where someone was saying that they ended up playing they didn't intend this to be their entire day, but that they ended up playing where, one of the spirits wearing a kerchief
Uh-huh.
as their outerwear, went through the wash,
Oh.
and their colors all got mixed up, so all the spirits looked identical, and so they just basically spent the entire time trying to fix fabrics. So they're just going through and they played it in the modern world, so they're going through Tide and trying to understand it as fey creatures. Like,
Uh-huh.
how do we, bleach this and return it to its original color? And that they ended up doing that for hours just as a puzzle, as like a problem-solving game of having to get different ingredients from different rooms and salt and all of these, and they poured wine on it because she had been red and now she was
Yeah.
so it's just so cute. And that
That
just
is
made me
so cute.
I had a player name their character, who was also a spirit, Lou Cotton, because she'd
Oh.
forgotten her name, but the tag said 100% cotton.
Oh, yeah, and, like, the one looks like an
So
L.
so, I love those pieces. I love those pieces, which
That
is funny
is
because my test group, the people who agreed to do it before I
yeah.
ever published it, were all power players. Like,
Uh-huh.
Pathfinder, Curse of Strahd, like, rule-following power players,
Yeah.
and so they were just but it was good because they tested the mechanics of how quickly does the virtuoso die?
Yeah.
So they did a good play test to find out, like, "He's too weak, you need to knock him up a strength."
Yeah. I mean,
And I did do so.
the min-maxers and the power gamers, which is a couple of my fellow DMs here, are yeah, they're so important for game testing. They gotta break it. They gotta
Yeah,
break
it
it.
was fantastic. I got a message from the DM of that group, and he said, "Note on the virtuoso, you breathe on him and he's dead." And so I had to go in and adjust his stats a little to make sure that the virtuosos didn't just die the first time they faced battle.
I love that. So yeah, so speaking of like game design, like this is where I get nerdy. We mentioned this before we started recording, but my partner is a game design professor, and so I am very familiar with everything that goes into game design. So what you kind of told me like the why behind why this became a thing, but like, have you always wanted to be a game designer? Have you designed other games? Like, what brought you here?
The answer is I wanted to.
Fair,
Because I've never designed. This was my first game ever. First game.
amazing,
I've homebrewed a lot because
sure,
I get frustrated. So
yeah,
like, right now I'm running a homebrewed version of uh the laser extension to D&D, so you can play Avatar: The Last Airbender,
amazing,
because
yeah,
every iteration of Avatar: The Last Airbender D&D has too many mechanics. So
yeah,
I went through and homebrewed, but beyond homebrewing, I'd never done any kind of game design in
nice,
any capacity, and I just was at the time. I am now a EC teacher, which in other states would know that as a special education teacher.
sure,
But at the time, I was working freelance at the Autism Society and had a lot of time on my hands,
sure,
and I knew I wanted to create a game. And I'm a fiction writer. That's what I write
yeah,
the vast majority of the time.
sure,
And so I love to write. I love to draw. Those are all my illustrations. And
yeah,
I just realized, like, I wanted to do a project that was completable.
yeah,
And I'd had this goal to create this game for these teenagers, but in my mind, it was just going to be for camp. it was
Sure.
gonna be in a notebook and for camp, and then it was going to die. And so as I put together this incredibly elaborate, like
Yeah.
30-page notebook, it just occurred to me that this is a very completable project. I've written all my mechanics. I like to write, I like to draw. And it just ended up being such a lifesaver at that moment of where I was at with feeling like I wasn't progressing in my career and all of these different things, to just have this incredibly doable project that I could do on a
Yeah.
timeline, complete, do this number of drawings a day, this number of pages a day. And I just loved it.
Yeah.
And the fact that anybody saw it at all was
Yeah.
surprising to me. Like, this was never, I mean, it's not huge, but it was the fact that, Meg's Tea Room asked
Yeah.
for it and, reviewed it was huge. I did have quite a few creators ask for the book, get the book, and then never talk to me ever
Oh,
again, which was a huge bummer because I was like, oh, come on.
yeah.
Such an indie creator. I didn't have the money to send this to you. And now it's like,
Yeah.
but Meg's Tea Room taking it on was so exciting to me. And I want to write more. And I have all of these ideas for extensions to Faefolk Fables of
For sure.
one thing I really want to write, and I've been working on, and I just haven't started doing any illustration for, is a pagan calendar extension
Oh,
that has
amazing. Yeah.
different one shots for different holidays.
Yeah.
So you can play them as like kind of this seasonal moment. So
Yeah.
different one shot campaigns to wait right within the game. So a Yuletide one and
Yeah.
a Beltane game. And just I think it would be really lovely. So I've got that
Yeah.
in
Yeah, that'd
potential.
be great. I mean, so we're recording this before the stream, obviously. It's going to be playing as a little breaker in the middle, but the stream is a holiday. It's December 1st is when the stream is happening, and it's a little holiday thing. So like a little that go between in between the fall and the winter. So yeah, so if you'd done that, I'd be like, I know exactly what I'm doing. So you make it, I'll be the first person to buy it. I love that idea. So that's amazing. One of the other questions was, are you going to make anything else? So, I mean, yeah,
I'm also
yeah,
crafty, so I've wanted to find a way to not to bite off more than I can chew, but make little kits that go with this that have, that have the little potion bottles and
yeah,
have so that there's a tactile, like felt element for
for sure.
specifically for kids playing, but that you have your uncharged herbs and then you have your potion and having pieces, miniatures that I create that go with the game with
Yeah,
special D6s and fun coins. So that's something
yeah.
I'd love to do.
Yeah, I will for everybody watching, one of the things that I adore about this book is how contained it is. So there's cutout sheets. Which by the way, everybody that bird, that's a pair of scissors, and that pair of scissors lives in my house. We have these scissors.
I want to
Um,
get that as a tattoo. That's my next
they're
tattoo.
so good. But yeah, the character sheets are so easy to do. It's front and back. But then you also have all these little cutouts that are all your herbal remedies, and it's such a good book. I'm going to absolutely be including a link to your Etsy and Amazon because seriously, like this is great. This is such a great buy. Christmas is coming, guys. Come on. Anyway, so um I'm trying to think of what else. There's a bunch of other questions. There's too many questions to ask. But okay, yeah, again, here's the real question, the real important, like hard-hitting question, which is what creature invocation would you be for you,
Ooh,
Grace?
ooh, um, ooh. I saw a pairing that I used it. Oh, I love this. I love how you can use the game. I used it for a reading camp for
Oh,
they were from grades 1 to 3, and I
yeah.
used it as part of their creative writing section of the reading camp. So they would write little stories about the characters. But one person put together a brownie tinker,
Ooh,
and this little kid just played, it was me. They played me, and I don't know if they knew they were playing me, but they were just like this nervous little crafty tinker who just like desperately wanted to make friends and would make
Yeah.
presents to give out. And so I think a brownie tinker
Brownie tinker.
is my
Yeah. I would have for me, it would be a troll guardian. What you can't tell because we're meeting over the internet is I'm 6'1", and I'm basically we were talking about this in our we have a Discord. We were talking about this in our Discord, and while I want to be a paladin, I'm absolutely a cleric. So I just got that like big protector thing going. So yeah, but I just love that. And I guess this kind of goes back to the game creation process, but how hard was it to like get it published? Like as an indie game, like you did it, I'm assuming you did it on your own.
completely on my own.
Yeah.
Relatively easy
Good.
because I mean, easy in how I put it out there. The marketing and self-promotion is the hard part because
Sure.
I used KDP, which not the biggest fan of Bezos, but is an excellent if you have no money,
Yeah.
KDP is the way to self-publish.
Yeah.
If you have $1,000 to front, then go an actual indie press route. But at the time, I really didn't. So
Yeah.
KDP is I very much recommend if you're just wanting to get into self-publishing. It's all on you. They're not going to proof it, check it, make sure it even remotely looks good. That's all you
Got it.
to do. But, I had used KDP before for I made some witchy bullet journals and a reading journal, just like some simple stuff to
Yeah.
use to just get a little bit of passive income and to get to draw. And so I had used those for a while, so I knew that I could use this publishing site. But the nice thing about KDP is I could always revoke it if an indie press were to be interested. And so
Hey,
that's something I'm
indie press
always really looking for
for
in
sure.
the small amount of time I have at the end of the day as a teacher. But I would love to have an indie press pick it up. But
Yeah.
yeah, I take my little crate. I get like buy my author copies and I take my books and I go to independent bookstores and they say, please, I'll sign one if you put it in your store. And not that
Amazing.
many do, but some do. And the online community is where I've been able to find success. The in-person stuff is a lot harder as an independent publisher. But
For sure.
TikTok has been wonderful for me. So they're an incredibly supportive bunch, my followers. And so that's where I've been able to get. If you can track through your Amazon purchases where they got sent from. And
Mm.
oh yeah, the linktree sends most of them. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like I said, it's a lovely game. And again, I'm really excited to play it with the people we're playing with. It's a group of one of my fellow DMs is doing it, but also it's a group of like people who really don't play that much. And but the great thing is that none of us have done this before, so
yep.
this is a learning stream where we're all going to be going with it as we go. And the fact that I feel confident that I can do that as a story weaver, as a game master, I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great. Like this is going to be so fun. We're doing a charming tale because one, I'm not a combat person. Like everyone knows that about me. I'm like, I just want to have a good time and like maybe do some sad drama, but like I don't want to fight. But also I felt like that's a really good a charming tale would be perfect for a 3-hour stream. Like let's just
Yes.
sit down and tell a cute little story. But the fact that I can take this to camps, so like wherever, like I feel confident that I can take this and have an amazing story, but an amazingly different story every single
Mhm.
time. So I think that you've really knocked it out of the park with this
Thank
book.
you.
So seriously, well done. I remember when I first saw it, I sent you a message. Streaming Rainbow had just started and I was from me. I was like, "Oh my god, can I play this? Can we play this?" And you're like, "Yeah, let me know." And that now months later we're here and it's like so good. Um we also had a question from Sarah, who's one of our other DMs. And I think this is a great question, which is so like so many when you play a campaign, there's always like a soundtrack. So
Yeah.
like are you a music person when you're
Oh yeah. Oh
okay?
yeah.
What would be your soundtrack? What's like the perfect soundtrack for a cottagecore or for Faefolk Fables?
The Hobbit, the Shire theme.
Fair. Absolutely.
The Shire theme is at all points in my brain. So it's like, for a fact, was in my brain when I wrote this. Yeah, the Shire.
Yeah.
Maybe the soundtrack to How to Train Your Dragon.
Oh, yeah.
Fox in the Field, the Fantastic
Yes.
Mr. Fox
Yeah.
backing track. So those are all very autumnal sounds, I think. Very
Yeah,
autumnal. It's an autumnal game to me.
it is. I agree, which is again why I love that I'm playing it on the 1st of December. Um, well, that's been about half an hour, so I think that's a great place to stop. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to me. Everybody go to find Grace on TikTok, on Etsy, on Amazon, on go to her link tree and you'll find her Instagram. I mean, it's for friends, but why not? We'll all be friends
It's
now.
open, come be a friend.
We're all just friends who haven't met yet. And seriously, guys, no joke, go and buy this book because it's not like a tome. This isn't D&D where you have to read 8 different books to get the story. Like, this is so fun. It's so easy to get into. All you need to play is a D6 and a coin. It is so accessible. So yeah, again, Grace, thank you so much for joining. And everyone, go check her out. So
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
you're welcome. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.